Hey, what's up? Hello. If you are new here, my name is Kayla and you are watching Kayla's Bookish Vibes. Today's video is going to be a fall book recommendation list, but I thought I would also add towards the end a list of books that would be on my fall TBR if I made TBRs. If you're new here, I don't make TBRs because I'm a mood reader and I don't stick to them. But if I did make TBRs, I would make one specifically for fall. And these would be the books that I would put on that list. So we'll get into those later. But first, I want to give you guys some book recommendations for the fall season. I know we are literally in the thick of it at this point, but if you are still looking for some fall books, I'm going to give you some of my favorites. I know some people just like to get super cozy for the fall. Some people want like spooky season starts in October, so they want to have like thrillers and horror novels, and I have some of those as well. And then I have some historical fiction that I think is just like super cozy, still a really good time. And something about fall and like the Burr months gives historical fiction. That's when I typically read a lot of my historical fiction, so I have a few of those on this list as well. Let's go ahead and get started. The first one is a romance. I won't be too long with this one. It is called What a Match by Mimi Grace. This is part of a series, but you can definitely read it without reading the other books in the series, and you can just tell by the cover that this is a fall book. Okay, listen, this is a dating my brother's best friend trope. It's so good. It's very sweet. There are some spicy bits in here as well, but it's not overly spicy. It's just a cozy, good time. And they're doing fall things in this book. If it's on your fall bucket list, they are probably doing it in this book. So it's going to give you all of the fall vibes that you're looking for. It's also going to be really sweet. I highly recommend if you're looking for a romance in the fall and you haven't read this one, you need to read this book. I absolutely love it. That's the only romance on this list. Now let's get into the historical fiction. So the first one I'm going to mention is The House of Eve by Sonequa Johnson. If you haven't read this book, what are you doing? Why haven't you read it? You need to read it. Even if you don't think you like historical fiction, I would recommend trying this as one of your first historical fiction books because I really do believe that you will like it. In this book, we are following two women, two different ages, two different lifestyles. One of them is a young girl and she is trying to better herself and she wants to be the first person in her family to go to college, but she finds herself in a predicament that could stop her from following her dreams. Then we have another young lady who is actually already in college. She finds the love of her life. They want to get married and they want to have children. And then you follow both ladies as they live their lives, and then you watch as their lives intersect. I really loved this book. This was my favorite book of the year. I believe it was 2023. Highly recommend. 5 stars. You need to read this book if you haven't already. The hype is real, and if you haven't read it, you're sleeping on this book. Read it. Next is another historical fiction, and that is The American Queen by Vanessa Miller. I really enjoyed this book because it taught me something new. This book is about Happy Land. If you have read the book Happy Land by Dolan Perkins Valdez, I believe it's about the same place, although this book was released first. I just really enjoy how she was able to come up with the fiction aspects of this book while also giving us the nonfiction aspects, like the actual facts of this place. We are following Queen Luluella, and we are following how her and her husband came together to make this land for Black people. This was a self-sufficient land, so everyone that worked there pulled their money together and they took care of each other. This was a self-sustaining society. I thought it was a really good time. This one is a lot more cozier, I think, than Happy Land by Dolan Perkins Valdez. So even if you read Happy Land, I think you should still pick this one up. Even though it's about the same place, the stories are very different because there's a lot that is unknown about Queen Luella and how Happy Land came to be. So the authors have to take a lot of creative liberty. So a lot of the story is their own. So even if you read the other book, I think you should still read this book. Next, another historical fiction, James by Percival Everett. This was my first book by this author, and I loved it. This was a 5-star read for me. This is a retelling of the Huckleberry Finn situation, only we're getting this from James' point of view. I don't even remember what Huckleberry was about. I know that I read it in school. I know that I had to. I just don't remember what it was about. So I can't even really tell you like the juxtaposition of the two books. I just know that this one was bomb.com. 5 stars. James in this book is a slave, but he was extremely smart, extremely savvy, witty. The ability to code switch in this book is what I loved the most. If you are familiar with the Huckleberry Finn, you should read this. If you're not familiar with it, or you've forgotten about it, or if you've never even read it in school, that is fine. You don't need to have read it, but you do need to read this masterpiece. Highly recommend. 5 stars. Next is another historical fiction that I don't see too many people talking about, and I'm wondering if it's because they haven't read it, if it's because they don't know that it's out there, or maybe they just didn't have the same feelings that I had when I read it. But The Sable Cloak by Gail Melissa Grant. I loved this book, y'all. This was so good to me. This is following a middle-class Black family in the 1940s, but we're getting different points of view from different family members in that family. So it's not just like a mom, a dad, a brother and sister. It's like a sister and maybe a cousin, and we're following them separately, and then eventually they come together and you see how all of the different stories connect. What I loved most about this book was that the families, even though it was in the 1940s, racism obviously is explored here. These families were well off, and it shows them pulling themselves up by the bootstraps, or like getting it out the mud, essentially, how their humble beginnings and how they were able to turn that into something else and to provide something more for their families. At the end of the day, it was mostly about community and the community within family, and how families pull together to help one another. If you haven't read it, if you haven't heard of it, I think you should check it out. Use your local library, check it out on Libby, listen to it on audio, but I do recommend that you check this book out this fall. Okay, so that was our romance, and the rest were historical fiction. The next book I am about to mention is historical fiction, but I feel like it's the perfect bridge, the perfect gap in between historical fiction and thriller. It's not a thriller. I wouldn't consider this a thriller, but the premise of it is going to give you like spooky season vibes. And that is, I actually don't own this book, and I'm probably going to order it as soon as I turn this camera off, but it is by J. California Cooper, and it's called Family. 5 stars. This was my first book that I've read by J. California Cooper. I loved it. Okay, in this book we are following, this is right like on the cusp of the Civil War. We are following a woman who dies. That's not a spoiler because you need to know this. She dies, and the rest of the book is from her point of view, almost as like a ghost in a sense. And she is watching her family and generations of her family and what happens to them, how they live their lives, what directions they go in, from almost as like a ghost perspective. Like she knows and she's conscious that she's there and that she's watching them, and that there's nothing that she can do about it, like nothing that she can do to assist them. She just has to watch everything unfold for generations of her family. This book was so good. If you haven't read anything by J. California Cooper, or if maybe you've only read like her short stories collections, I know she has a lot of short story collections. If you haven't read any of her full novels, I recommend that you start with this one. This one is a full novel, and it was so good, and it's the perfect cross between historical fiction, and again, I don't consider it a thriller, but if you're looking for something, you don't want to necessarily be scared, you don't necessarily want anything spooky, but you still want something that's like those fall vibes, it's still giving like fall vibes just because of the point of view that we're getting. Highly recommend. I loved that book so much. All right, the next book we are going to talk about is a thriller. I recently just finished this book and I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving this a 4-star, and that is Zetas Till We Die by Amber and Daniela Brown. In this one, we are following a group of sorority sisters, and we're following them 10 years after they've graduated. So they've already have established their careers. Some of them are married, some of them have children. The point of view that flashes back to their college years is one of the sorority sisters died when they were in college. It's not a spoiler, it is in a synopsis. Fast forward 10 years later, they're having a reunion. And so all of the sorority sisters are getting together. The person who was convicted of killing their sorority sister 10 years ago has recently been released. Some sinister things are starting to take place. And obviously we're trying to figure out, it's like a murder mystery. We're trying to figure out who done it, who done some things that happened at this 10-year reunion. Also, I feel the need to mention that this is a Black sorority. I enjoyed that aspect. There was a few moments of like racial commentary, but not a lot. Honestly, I think there was probably only 1 or 2 instances, so you're not going to get too much of that, but just the descriptions of each lady, what she's up to, what she looks like, how she dresses, how she carries herself, the type of money that they make. These are Black women, and I was excited to read these well-to-do Black women who had succeeded in life, you know, who had set out certain goals that they wanted to reach after they graduated college, and they reached them. Now, with that being said, people are dying in this book, so even if you're a scaredy cat, I think you would still like it. It's a thriller. It's not a horror novel. If you enjoy things like, enjoy true crime, like if you listen to true crime, this doesn't have a true crime element in it per se, but I feel like if you do listen to true crime, you would enjoy this book. Also, if you're into like Law and Order, I think you would like this, only because there is like a small aspect of the cops being involved in things that are happening. Now, with all that being said, there were moments where I was just like, now, be for real. Be for real. They was not for real. So there was moments where I had to suspend my disbelief, but overall I really enjoyed this book, and I think it is perfect to pick up during the spooky season. The next thriller book that I want to recommend is The Chalkman by C.J. Tudor. This gives all the fall vibes. all the fall vibes. This book has two different timelines. So we flash back to 1986, and when this 1986 is giving like Stranger Things. If you're a fan of Stranger Things, and not necessarily like the strange aspect of it, right? There's no like psychedelic sci-fi stuff happening in this book at all. But just like the time period when you watch Stranger Things and like the fashion that they're wearing and just like the things that are happening, the way of life that you know the 1980s were, I feel like you get that in this book as well. It's very atmospheric in that sense. So in 1986, we are following Eddie and his friends. They're on the verge of adolescence, spending their days biking in search of adventure. Okay, so it's a group of kids up to no good, but just living like kids did in the 1980s, which is very different from how kids live today. The chalk men are their secret code. Stick figures that they draw for one another as hidden messages. I loved that aspect. So they would leave like drawings for each other. Obviously cell phones weren't a thing back then. You actually had to ride your bike to your friend's house to hang out with them. What if your friend wasn't there when you rode your bike to their house? What did you do? Like, how did you know? Like, yo, we're meeting at the playground at this time. They would draw little chalk figures on the sidewalk for each other, messages for each other to see, to know, you know, where the meetup was going to happen. I just loved that aspect of this book, and it felt so cozy to me. Now, while it was cozy, this is a thriller, so there are thrilling aspects to it. One morning, the friends find a chalk man leading them to the woods. They follow the message only to find the dead body of a teenage girl. So like I said, there were cozy aspects, but this is a thriller and there are thrilling aspects as well. Fast forward to 2016, Eddie is nursing a drinking problem and trying to forget his past, until one day he gets a letter containing a chalk man, the same one he and his friends saw when they found the body. Soon he learns that all his old friends received the same note. When one of them is killed, Eddie realizes that saving himself means figuring out what happened all those years ago. But I just remember reading this in the fall and thinking like, whoa, that was the perfect thriller. It's not long at all. It's fast paced. It's very atmospheric. Now, the next two books I'm going to mention are horror novels. The first one is going to be Model Home by River Solomon. So if you are a scaredy cat, these books are not for you. These are for people who are looking for scary thrillers / horror novels to read in the spooky season. This is one that I would recommend. Did end up tabbing this book, and that is because this is not just like a run-of-the-mill horror novel. There are messages, there are, you know, deeper meanings into things within this book, but I really enjoyed it. So if you're looking for a horror novel that you can sink your teeth into that's also going to make you think and reflect, then I would recommend this one. I enjoyed this book also because I think it did a really good job at exploring sibling dynamics. So we are following a group of siblings. There's 3 of them, and they grew up in this well-to-do area in Dallas, but they ended up moving away. And they didn't move away because they were the only Black people in this well-to-do area. They moved away because the house that they lived in was haunted. Okay, strange things were always happening in this house, and they believed that the house itself was the cause of these things. And even though even their mother believed this, like it was not a secret, this was something that the entire family knew, but they still continued to live in this house. Obviously, when the children grew up and became adults, they left. They left this house and they left their parents in the home by themselves. They get a call one day that their parents are dead, and they just instantly know the house killed their parents. So much more than the synopsis that I just gave you. There's so much to reflect on and to digest in this book. Just know that it's not going to be like a run-of-the-mill good time slasher haunted house novel. This is one that's going to make you think and reflect. Highly recommend though, if you're into that sort of thing. Last one that I'm going to recommend to you before I share some of the books that would be on my TBR if I made TBRs is going to be Listen to Your Sister by Nina Vell. 4-star book for me. I loved it. This is also one of those books that has deeper meanings, but it's not going to be one that you just have to like dig through to figure out what's going on. It's not one of those, although there are deeper meanings within this book. The title is very fitting. Listen to Your Sister. Again, this one also explores sibling dynamics. Honestly, if you've already read this book and you enjoyed it, you haven't checked this one out, I think you should. These are 2 very comparable books, very different in their own ways, but also I feel like people who enjoyed Model Home would also enjoy this one. We are following another sibling dynamic here. We are following 2 brothers and a sister. The sister is the oldest, and she is now the guardian of her youngest brother, who I believe is around 16, 17. His name is Jamie. He is the youngest. And then we have the middle brother. I can never remember the middle child's name, and I hate that I can't. What is his name? Dre. His name is Dre. Dre is the middle child. Now, Jamie is always up to no good. Kala is always having to bail him out of trouble. As the older sister, she has to do a lot. Okay, she's responsible as far as the guardian, and even though the middle sibling, Dre, promised that he would help, take care of Jamie and raise him and keep him out of trouble, he's not really any help. And everything falls on Kala's shoulders. Jamie is hard-headed. He doesn't listen. He's 16 or 17. He wants to do what he wants to do, and he doesn't really care what Kala has to say about anything, and it shows. Now, Kala has nightmares. Okay, she's tried to warn her brothers of her nightmares, but they wouldn't listen, and they really should have. That's literally the tagline. Kala always warned her brothers about her nightmares, and they really should have listened, and they really should have. This also explores like what it looks like to love and really care for Black boys and Black men as a Black woman, and how much weight that is on your shoulders. It also explores growing up too fast and having to be a mother figure to your siblings when you were never really given a mother figure yourself. Such a good, if you're an older sister, if you are always responsible for your siblings, even as an adult, if you're always responsible for them, I think you would really be able to relate to Kala and her plight. This was really good. And while there are deeper meanings and you may have to fish a little bit for them, I feel like it was very easy to decipher some of those things. This does also feel somewhat like a fever dream though, because there are scenes that I'm just like, is this happening or no? Like, but I actually enjoyed the confusion that was taking place. I think at the end though, everything was fleshed out, and I was left feeling very satisfied with the ending of the book. But I do recommend, if you are looking for a horror novel that's not really, your run-of-the-mill horror novel, that has something to say but is still really scary, then I recommend this one. I really did enjoy it. Okay, those are all of my book recommendations for the fall/spooky season months. Now I'm going to go over very briefly some of the books that I would add to a TBR if I made them, but I don't make them, so these are just hypothetical TBR books. First, Jane Eyre. I feel like the synopsis of this book, this is a classic. I feel like the synopsis of this book is going to read very well in the spooky season months. Okay. Charlotte Bronte tells the story of orphan Jane Eyre, who grows up in the home of her heartless aunt, enduring loneliness and cruelty. This troubled childhood strengthened Jane's natural independence and spirit, which proved necessary when she finds employment as a governess to the young ward, Mr. Rochester. As her feelings for Rochester develop, Jane gradually uncovers Thornfield Hall's terrible secret, forcing her to make a choice. Should she stay with Rochester and live with the consequences, or follow her convictions, even if it means leaving the man that she loves? I kind of already know what this book is about because I've just heard so many different people's thoughts on it. But I want to read this book for myself. So if I made fall TBRs, this one would be on it. Although I will say I do believe that I will be getting to this one this month. Next, if I made fall TBRs, this one would be on it. This is a romance, The Dating Prohibition. I do try to sprinkle in a romance here and there, even during the spooky season, because I find myself reading a lot of heavier novels, a lot of thicker fantasies, or maybe like darker themed books like horrors and thrillers. So I try to sprinkle in romances just to kind of lighten the mood a little bit. And I believe this is also, which is so funny because the other romance that I mentioned is kind of the same trope, but this is Dating My Brother's Best Friend. Looking at the cover, it's giving very fall, like the fall leaves, and you can see like the leaves on the ground. They're in sweaters. It's just giving fall. So in this one, we are following Kendra, who is back home in her hometown, trying to get her restaurant off the ground. Runs into her crush from when she was a kid, BJ, who also happens to be her brother's best friend. And we go from there. Next, The Good House by Tanana Reeve Dew. I love Tanana Reeve Dew's The Reformatory, and I was going to put that on this list as a book recommendation for the spooky season, but I have recommended that book so many times that it's, at this point, you guys already know that I love that book. If you haven't read it, you need to read it. It's perfect for the spooky season, but I really want to check out her other books. So if I made TBRs, this would definitely be on it. Spoiler alert, I've already started this book, so I'm getting to it this season. I've actually already started reading it. Next, we have a historical fiction, The Trees by Percival Everett. Again, I've already mentioned James by Percival Everett. This is one that I recommend because I've already read it and it was a 5-star read for me. I want to get into more of his books, and this one I feel like would be perfect to read this season. I'm going to read you the synopsis for this one. It says, when a pair of detectives from the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation arrive in Money, Mississippi to investigate a series of brutal murders, they find at each crime scene an unexpected second dead body. That of a man who resembles Emmett Till. After meeting resistance from the local sheriff, his deputy, the coroner, and a string of racist white townsfolk, the FBI detectives suspect that these killings are of retribution. Hello, that's giving very October-ish. So if I made TBRs, which I don't, this one would be on it. Last but not least, I wanted to put one fantasy on here. I remember seeing this fantasy everywhere. I remember seeing it everywhere. I think I ended up picking this up on Book Outlet. One Dark Window by Rachel Gilling. It's just giving very gothic, very eerie, very misty, and it's just, I feel like the atmosphere would be perfect for fall. Elspeth Spindle needs more than luck to stay safe in the eerie, mist-locked kingdom of Blunder. Very fall. She needs a monster. She calls him the Nightmare, an ancient spirit trapped in her mind. He protects her. He keeps her secrets. But nothing comes for free, especially magic. So this, I feel like, would be a fantasy perfect for the spooky season, perfect for the fall months. I feel like it gives both cozy, gothic, eerie, and slightly horrific. I don't know though, because I haven't read it. And if I did make TBRs, this is one that I would put on to find out for myself. So that's it. Those are the books that I both recommend and books that I would put on a fall TBR if I made fall TBRs. Thank you so much if you stayed to the end of today's video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have read any of these books, the ones I recommended or the ones that I want to get to, let me know down in the comments below what you thought of those books without giving any spoilers. Feel free to give me your star rating. I think that's all I have for you today. If you stay to the end and you want to let me know, leave this emoji so that I know you stuck around to the end. You guys know that helps my channel out so much. If you still have hypes left this week, you know, consider giving one to your girl. I really appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.